second?
Yeah, sure.
I want to relate to a couple of things that Ishai spoke about. Ishai spoke about, one of the things that Ishai mentioned was the incredible infrastructure that entrepreneurs now have if they want to start a company. There's an entrepreneur called Dalia Prashker who started a very interesting company in the 80s, New Dimension, which was eventually sold for $700 million. And when they started the company, computer hours used to cost thousands of lirot or something per hour. They were fortunate to get hold of Cytex. They had a computer that they weren't using, and so to overcome the problem, when they talk about Ford starting his company, he had, he was growing the trees that he's going to use in building the companies, etc. So the infrastructure question is very interesting and very much in favor of startup companies. A second point, which I'd like to reemphasize that Ishai mentioned was about, starting a company in Tel Aviv vis-a-vis Italy or Korea. And one of the things that Michael Porter actually mentions in his research about companies, about successful companies, is the fact that clusters often work better. And in Tel Aviv, apparently we have, or in Israel altogether, we have an amazing cluster of very, very many different technologies, which is indeed an opportunity. I'll let you hold the microphone, and if anybody wants to ask a question, please go ahead.
I've got a question, actually, two for Shai. So we talked about the ecosystem in Tel Aviv, and I would say even in Israel, but every single one of the opportunities you were talking about are software-based.
Yeah. This is what I know about. Okay.
So I would.
What do? You build hardware?
The next revolution, which we are already in, the third industrial revolution, hardware revolution, maker revolution, call it what you will. I don't think Israel even knows that the map exists. The first IoT conference was about a year ago.
What exactly, when you talk about hardware, what do you think? What do you think when you say hardware? Do you talk about
purpose hardware, not silicone, not medical or agri-tech or clean tech that have OCS-funded incubators, but robotics, IoT, wearables, 3D printing, synthetic biology.
3D printing very strong in Israel. Very, very strong.
We have a great company here that invests nothing in the Israeli ecosystem. All their efforts are directed at the American market. MakerBot.
I know their CFO very well, if you want to.
I also know them very well.
Okay, so he doesn't want to invest? Maybe your idea is not good enough.
No, I have nothing to do with
I'm kidding.
They don't invest in the ecosystem here in hardware, so that's the one thing. The second thing, everything you spoke about revolved around, at the end of the day, money. And what I would like to know is, what about the opportunities to create value for the world? There's another banner for commercials in my eyes doesn't create value.
What do you mean about value? Just explain what is value to the world. Changing the world? The world is not going to change, The world is what it is.
The world is changing every moment.
No, it's not changing.
Okay.
Never mind, it's philosophy, It's like, I don't think that the world is changing.
Everything is changing. Anything that is stagnant is dead.
Humans are humans. They have the same emotions. It's philosophy, but let's not get into this. But you say value is not making money. You're right. Making money is corruption.
I think that profit with purpose, a concept that is very foreign to Israeli investors, is a way you can go. I think your current startup can and will.
This is what we do. This is why we build it on many. This is what we do. The idea is to take money from Facebook and other companies and to spread it to these small websites that create the content and struggling to survive because Facebook is making the money. This is the idea.
How many startups in the 5-kilometer radius do you think are creating value?
Many of them.
Can you please enumerate them?
No, I don't have the list. But what do you say about New York? Do they create value?
Yeah, so value, and let me tell you a funny story about, since we're talking about Facebook and ecosystems and value. So my dentist back home. Painless Dr. Z. He had a kid who was really, trying to think how to do this, really bright young guy. Sorry. And the son is never motivated by money. And when he wanted to start his company, his father was upset that he wanted to go to San Francisco because that had the ecosystem. In New York, at that point, didn't have the ecosystem. And he was just a local dentist. His practice was in his house. Very proud of his son. And this son was never motivated by money. So the Painless Dr. Z, the Z is for Zuckerberg. His dentist son is Mark, who created Facebook. When he created his first app, he gave it away for free, even though Microsoft offered him a job and millions of dollars for it. And if you look at the great entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, he was in the same house where he started. That idea of make a dent in the universe. They were very passionate about what they did. Mark Zuckerberg drove the same car that he drove when, again, he was a neighbor in Dobbs Ferry, and his father.
Now he purchased an island for, I don't know, and he moved families that lived there for eight generations.
So
no, money corrupts you, and this is another story.
But money corrupts. So I'm thinking there's so many parts to it that I want to communicate. I'm not doing it effectively, but his house he rented. He had no furniture. His father, who put money in Facebook, and is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, he just stopped practicing last year. I got an email from him that he's turning over his practice 10 years after, Facebook when public was really making a lot of money. He still practiced. He wasn't motivated by money. Even Google, it has such a horrible name. There's that don't be evil. But one thing I find interesting with students now is this whole interest in social entrepreneurship, or doing something with a purpose, with a cause. And when you look at entrepreneurship, so much of it is about a passion, a need for achievement. And it's almost never it's about making money. Watch Guy Kawasaki talk about that. If you start a company, to make meaning, you'll make meaning and probably make money. If you start to make money, it's not happening. And look at so many successful entrepreneurs. They weren't motivated. Bill Gates, he saw an article on the Altair. He dropped out of school. Maybe this is the reason I'm
not a billionaire yet, because I'm motivated by money. No.
But you're not.
I understand, but Facebook is bringing value to the world. It's killing the world. People are not reading books anymore. Either you browse you cannot it killed the opportunity of the people to unite, because you see only if you are left wing you only see left wing people in Facebook. If you are poor, you have only poor friends in Facebook, and so this is why governments are controlling us through Facebook. This is just a point. So Facebook is not very good to the world, as I see it. Okay, it's killing so many stuff that is so natural that was in. You have anything to say about this? Please save me.
I would like to.
It's very interesting. Okay, next question.
I would like to relate to two of the points that were brought up here. First of all, yesterday we celebrated. Bruce was there. We celebrated the success of the Global Entrepreneurship Week, sister organization to the MIT Enterprise Forum. The Global Entrepreneurship Week in Israel aims at bringing entrepreneurship to the social periphery, and we have 250 volunteers and 80 cooperating organizations. And Gil Shurka, who runs the show, is sitting down here. And we were part of 4 international competitions, startup competitions, and we won 2 gold medals in 2 of these, and we won a special award on a 3rd. And all of these 3 were sitting on stage last night being interviewed by Izar Shai. And what they were doing is, one is an agrotech company that helps you manage your water supplies. You can save about 50% of the water. You can save on the addition, on the additives. and you get between 5% and 50% more crops. Okay, that's one way of doing good. The other one was a company that helps you monitor the air around you. Okay, so it helps you on the personal level if you want to do your morning run in Dizengoff Street or in Ben Yehuda Street. But it also helps government better understand how the environment is affected by pollution. And the third company is actually an amazing piece of software that helps kids or people who are hurt by a stroke or something that are unable to express themselves clearly. We don't see them because they don't go out a lot. But the computer system learns to understand them and speaks for them. Okay, so all of a sudden they communicate.
I need one of these machines.
And all of a sudden, and look at this, we have 3 fantastic companies. The 4th company that we sent is another social network that wants to improve the world. So there are a lot of people that are doing good.
You start with trying to improve the world, and then you become,
And Kylie Kalpert, that was here earlier on, is part of an organization which is called Israel Dev, that works to improve the world and develop technologies for third world countries. So there's a lot of good happening around us, and I agree with Bruce when he's quoting the fact that Ed Roberts came to the same conclusion. Companies, entrepreneurs who are interested in the challenge, in doing well, and Isha is one of them. Usually the well entrepreneurs that are interested in money don't do as well. I also want to relate to another point that Ishai brought up, and that's the question of monopolies.
Yeah.
And Bruce showed the picture of the event that the MIT Forum of Israel and New York held in Manhattan 3 years ago. And in this event, Yaron Galai, I think he just started the Outbrain then, but his first exit, Quigo, was he made Google Nil. He was competing with Google and he won.
Yeah.
So you can compete with
And he created the first search engine. When the internet, I was just mentioning this, when you used to go, Yaron, when you went to a web page, back in the early 90s, there was only a few thousand nodes on the internet. A typical website only had 4 or 5 pages, a homepage, about us, contact, a couple other things. When he saw in mid-1990s, Amazon gets so popular with millions of titles, he said, these websites need a way to search through their own content so you could find what you're looking for. And he created what was then a search engine. He didn't know who to sell it to. He told a story about selling it first to Unit 8600, 8200, whatever it's called, the military intelligence, and then to the CIA. And he still had no idea what he had. But anyway, these amazing type of things. But Israel has also hardware, and for good, like Netafilm. There's always been things out of here. But also talking about that shift in perception. When Ella talked in New York 3 years ago, she had the slides of what all the economists predicted Israel's economy would be. And you know what it was? Oranges.
In the 90s. The Export Institute thought that oranges would be the #1 export in the 90s.
So,
I don't know.
So
let's move on.
yeah.
I want to respond a little to what you guys have been talking about. I think if you have a diverse understanding of different systems, you can see opportunities for disruption, and if you have a long view, you can see alternate applications. My focus has really shifted toward analytics. I really see that as where things are going, with an eye towards the development of AI. I know it's coming. I'm really bad at putting timing on technological growth. Usually I think something's 10 years out, and then 2.5 years later it's fully developed. I'm curious what your views are on how AI is going to develop. And
You mean artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And because Israel is in such diverse applications of analytics, as opposed to the U.S., where companies seem to be mostly focused on marketing analytics, how do you think Israel is going to play a major role in AI coming?
I'm not sure that I understand the AI enough to respond on this. And in analytics, I'm an expert in analytics itself, but like collecting analytics and reduce prices on analytics and stuff.
Well, I would say it relates to different realms of analytics getting to the point where they can be put together to
No, I'm not good enough in this field.
One of the projects I work with, IBM, was with Watson, and I was in when they filmed the Jeopardy thing.
They do it in Israel, I think, in like the Deep
Yeah,
Blue.
the center is in Israel.
And it's
Okay,
Deep Blue.
Talk to them.
And it's amazing. What they were looking at is what are the best applications for that. And there was a representative that I was asked to go on the panel for schools. Obviously, we want it to grade our papers to make our life easier as an academic. But they decided on medicine, would be one of the best uses. But there's so many areas in big data and
The
artificial
latest,
intelligence.
Which I really liked, I saw this article maybe 2 days ago. They applied Watson to analyzing personality metrics based on writing samples. I have the website. I can pass it along to you. It's very interesting. You can put any text. You can put your text, something from a book, and then you get a whole psychological profile of the person.
In the 80s, there was a big boom of artificial intelligence in the papers, and the Time magazine and etc. And I took a class at the Technion then, and it was amazing to see that they were still trying to decide whether the rectangular is standing in front of the triangle or.
Yeah.
So that's where we were, but we've gone a long way. There was a lot of disappointment at that point of what artificial intelligence could do, and the consequences was that the systems, the expert systems, that was the first phase of artificial intelligence, were useful when they were accompanied to people, but not replacing people.
Well, in my opinion, AI can go really bad or really good, and I think the X factor is, having people as being used as redundancies to keep it from getting out of control. So, I think that's a big point.
I want to let Gil pose this question.
This is for Shai. So why you decide to sell Saluto? Because
Me decided?
why
I
you-
didn't decide.
Because, right,
I
because
wasn't there when it's been
Yes,
acquired. I left Soluto a year or so before it's been acquired. I already was in my own startup. And my co-founder decided to sell it. I was in the board. I was a board member. And the reasons are very, very complicated. But we didn't reach our vision.
Because yesterday Shai told us, you remember that?
What?
That he was asking you or your partner about the sale.
What did he say?
Said that no price in the world will save the company.
What?
When you were on stage at the MIT Forum, you were there together with Waze and with.
We said that we didn't going to sell the company.
Never going to
This is
sell
how
the
you get high valuations, by saying that you're going to sell it. But the reason it's been acquired, it's very complicated. Every story hits on. But the true thing is that we didn't manage to create a monopoly, okay? A monopoly in creating what was planned in the vision, operating system of operating systems, which is operating system on the web that you can manage any operating system with a single interface, and at the back end you can have Linux, Windows, Mac OS, it doesn't matter. So, or mobile phones. The company that purchased Soluto was interested in that technology. So it was along the way.
Is that related to parallels? Stuff like parallels?
No, it's not remote access. It's just you want to put a software somewhere, you just press a button, and when the machine is up, it installs it automatically. If you have errors, it's being transmitted to the server. If there is solution, transmitted automatically. And you don't need to understand Mac OS, Android, or whatever operating system. This was the vision. We didn't meet the vision.
Another question for Ronen and Yael. Like, you explain about the opportunities in New York City, but maybe you can, your experience, the different about Tel Aviv and New York, maybe something about it? The difference?
Well, mainly the size. New York is such a huge place that the opportunities are endless. But what I learned from my experience is that you have to be there. You can't remote control your business in another country. So if you really want to take advantage of the opportunities in New York, you got to be there. You got to spend some time there. And like Ishai said regarding Tel Aviv, you got to build your network there. But otherwise, you can have access to the best people almost in every field because they are in the States or they are specifically in New York. But you got to build the network to get to the right people. And then endless opportunities are opening way bigger than in Israel.
Once you're at that stage where you've built a company in Israel that's selling to the US successfully, what functions would you put in New York? Marketing, business development, some of the development?
It depends on the specific company. If you take Wix, for instance, because I know this company, because I know the founders, and I've been like sitting there for a while when I was thinking of my own startup. So they are interested in New York as well as they are interested in Japan and in Korea. So this is another point about Tel Aviv. The time zone, it's perfect. In a single normal working hours, you can talk with all over the world. So running a business from here in the Middle East, it's perfect. Okay, we have people in. Especially I'm interested in Korea because I love this country, and I don't know. I have friends from Korea, and so we can talk to our Korean representative in the evening. Going in the morning. Wait a second.
In the morning, they're ahead of us.
In the morning, yes, of course, they're ahead of us. So in the morning until noon, we can talk to them, and in the evening, okay, we can talk to San Francisco. And and you don't need to work 24 hours a day. But it depends on the business. Our business, it's definitely New York, okay? Other businesses of my friends, they build the startup, build the concept, did market validation, realized that they have product market fit, and they want now to do growth and collaborations and integrations and everything with ION, and they need to move to San Francisco. So part of the team moved to San Francisco, and sometimes all the team moved to San Francisco. The opportunity itself for people like me is doing it like starting in Tel Aviv, testing, seeing what you do, what is your market. Take Viber, for instance. They found out that because they were a little bit late, this is my analysis, I'm not sure it's true, but they found out the opportunity is the Far East. Imagine that they would be, I don't know, in Europe.
So I'm talking about when the opportunity is US-based and you've made the decision to go to...
What business? Say the name of the business. What's the idea?
Internet, e-commerce.
What is it? E-commerce. So why is the opportunity in the United States? It's the internet. You want to sell to Americans more from the Europeans?
That's what's it's reinforcing success. The U.S. market, for us at least, is big enough and interesting enough, and is...
How it's going to help you to be in the United States? You need to ask this question. When you have the answer, you need to answer what city. Maybe you need to be in Oregon. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing, specific.
The U.S. is 25% of the world economy, so
Yeah.
if you want to make a product specific for a market, he is probably right that the best approach is the U.S. market.
So one thing with New York, and it's interesting, when I made the joke, the center of the known universe, for many industries, there is a center, and one of the reasons that this startup community worked is not just there was bright people, but a lot of these industries are ripe for disruption. And if you look at the center, law in New York, publishing in New York, fashion in New York, retail, there's so many huge industries. But as you said, it depends what you're doing. But there's so many industries that are headquartered in New York, and a lot of well-known San Francisco companies, have offices in New York to connect with, and you should say, opening your wallet and make a sale. That's what it is. Companies exist for two reasons: to make things and sell them. And so much of the marketing world and merchandising world is in New York. So even these big San Francisco companies have big operations in New York to take advantage of that side. But there's so many other big industries there. And the other thing, as Ron said, you have to be there, and as Isha said, you have to speak that language. And Isha knows the New York City language. You know what the New York City alphabet is? Fucking A, fucking B, fucking C. So you got the language down.
No, I'm in Tel Aviv. My co-founder is moving to New York. I'm staying here. Okay, I'm not into. I love Tel Aviv. I think it's the best city in the world. It's for me. I need to go in a minute, but let's one last. Yeah.
Thing maybe, maybe you can talk a bit about the atmosphere itself of the cities. The atmosphere itself, does it feel different? And if does that have any effect maybe on the ecosystem itself?
Yeah, and aside from that general perception of desirability, how New York City in the mid-'70s was horrible, now it's great. Israel, what's happening, or specifically in Tel Aviv. But another thing that I picked up what Ishay said was there's this sharing community, the same way you talked about being able to talk to people. In New York, it's funny, it's thought of as a very competitive, combative, whatever place. But when I needed anything, to call and pick up, people are very happy to help, to be a guest speaker, to mentor a student, to work with a startup around the MIT Enterprise Forum. So I think one of the common things is this sense of community and this willingness to share and contribute. And it's really interesting. And I found it interesting in Startup Nation when they talked about different centers, like in Dubai. I spent a little time there. When they had the recession, everybody left. They literally left cars, Mercedes, in the airport collecting dust because people took off. Because it's a very, what they call transactional economy. When there's a lot of money, people will come to make money and go. But I think the difference in these economies is you have real communities. And I see that in New York, and I feel that here to a degree, but I think that's something Isha talked about.
Yeah. For me, okay, so my team we have 1 day a week that we work until late. So this is the day, and this is why I can be here, because I have 2 daughters. And I spend my time talking to you, and I didn't care if it's going to be 40 people or 5,000 people. I don't care, okay? Because I was sitting like you in lectures in Tel Aviv in front of Ayala or people that Ayala brought to us. Ella, you write it Ayala in the email. Ella, I know you for, 10 years now, I think. Anyway, for Ella, I'm tired. So I'm obligated to come here, okay? And my team is waiting and my food is getting cold. But I'm here because I'm obligated, because I got help, okay? And I'm doing it less right now because we are building a new product and I'm getting approached from entrepreneurs and I try to help and it's very hard for me. But people that have already company that worth $1 billion and they have more time, a little bit more time, they can free, 2 hours a week to help other people, and they do it, okay? So it actually happens, and the atmosphere, you feel it from me, I guess, like the fact those guys left. They talked about value, and they're against money. But, in startup company, you're raising money from businessmen. They don't care what you build. They just want to multiply it, okay? They're not doing this because you're nice. They're doing it because you're nice and you're going to make them money. So you cannot ignore this, especially in a forum like this, okay? We're not talking to newspapers right now and we're pretending that we're doing something which has value to the world, like Facebook when they get interviews and stuff like this. So,
I think it's about psychology. And I think it doesn't matter where, because the same words I heard in San Francisco, and it was true there too, that you get into a coffee place and you just start to talk with someone and they will give you ideas. And I can tell you that as opposed to you being from the laboratory and working a lot of hours from the lab, we are less exposed to the world as developers like you are. And someone can, just give me a phone call and ask me something, or I can do the same by calling someone else. And most probably they will give me good advice and I will give them good advice, but I don't know them. It's much easier to me, and I suppose it's a simple psychology, to help someone from here. And sometimes it's even funny because I'll tell you a story. I was giving a lecture last November in one of the symposiums for vascular surgery. Frightening to go there. What they have on their tables is advertising. You don't want to know. But I was giving a lecture, and three lecturers after me, there was another group from Israel. It happened to be Hadera. And immediately they came to me and said, we have the patients that you need. It's very easy to do it when you speak with people you know, and it's a simple psychology. But you can be helped by anyone, everywhere. The ecosystem is something that we just, to my opinion, feel comfortable with.
And that idea, the question about are they creating things of value, stems for like coronary artery disease, a leading cause of death on Earth. And that thing about helping in the ecosystem, one of the, for me, the best books on entrepreneurship is The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki. You know what the last chapter is? The art of being a mensch. And what is a mensch? Someone who helps you when
Mensch
they
is
don't.
in Yiddish.
Right.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you're willing to extend help when there's no clear benefit that you're going to get. So that kind of contribution, psychology, ecosystem, help, community, I think that's all part. And it's not something that money or a government action or something's going to create. It's about a community. That's the most important part of that ecosystem.
I wish to thank everybody who was here today, the people on stage that came and spent so much time with us, and all of you who came here despite the terrible weather. I want to encourage those of you who are considering the PACE Opportunity Lab, the PACE Entrepreneurship Lab opportunity, to come and speak to Ronen, to Yael, and to Bruce, and learn more about it. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, that was a lot of fun.